Hello, hello. This is Karen with Naturally with Karen. And today we're doing our Toxic Brain number 3, section number 3 on addiction. This is going to turn into a playlist on YouTube. And so if you join me today, you have the added advantage that if you join in on live streams, you can bring your questions live in the moment and I can help you to answer them. I didn't have an extensive amount of experience with addiction, but I had some. And in the last little over 2 years, I've had a close family member who's been addicted and relapsed multiple times to an opioid, heroin and fentanyl. And I lived through that. If you see my videos about a year and a half ago, you'll go, whoa, she changed. What's going on? You know, she cut her hair and she looks a little more tired and it looks like she gained a little more weight. That's why. So I'm being an open book and I'm discussing, that I'm regenerating myself right now, which is what I do for other people. So that's what's going on. Now, toxic brain number 3 is addiction. And addiction, if you look at the word sound, it's going to tell you exactly what it's all about. But before we start getting into that, I want to say something because you might be used to watching videos that go straight to the point, just bing, bang, boing, and they're done. And you might be used to videos that take a little bit of a curve and they hurry up and wrap up because they know that you are busy, 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 busy. My videos aren't that way, and I'm going to explain why. The word linear comes from the word line, like a ruler, like a measuring tape, like everything's on this plateau that's a straight line, right? And then you have other folks that tend to think in slightly curvy reality. And what I like to think of is like clinicians, people that go to an American Medical Association school, they become an RN, they become degreed. And they go work in the medical, allopathic Western medical industry. A lot of that medicine, and not all, but a lot of it is very linear. It's a straight line. You go from A to B, and the protocol is A, B, or C, and it's very, very linear, okay? If you go and you're in a university, like I went to University of California, Santa Cruz, I went to San Jose State University, and I went to numerous other local community colleges and just taking what I wanted to take because I quit chasing paper. A shaman, which I am, a medicine woman, which I am, is going to take you on the fractal and the spiral-based path. So I interfuse this with stories. It doesn't mean that I can't get to the point because I can. Sure, addiction is this, you've got pain and trauma and there's these different ones and it's this different thing and bing, bang, boing. But that is what someone who's really left brain would do, who's a very concrete black and white thinker. And any of you who are medicine people, who are very right-brained, who are shamans in the making or shamans right now or medicine people, whatever it is, right? Your water warriors or whatever, you know that you don't want to just get straight to the point. That's the people for people who need the bottom line. They want the bottom line. They want to get to the point, and they're the people that need to have reality checks and all different kinds. They need the institutions and they feel really comfortable. If you're watching my channel, it means that there's something, and I'm getting comfortable in my chair. It means that there's something about me that's more like you. That means that you gravitate, you vibe, you sense more, you like being in the energetic field, and you want to hear from a person who's got 35 years of medicine who didn't just take a straight route through the American Medical Association. See, I don't have a straight, beautiful jar. I do, but it's actually put up. I'm using a recycled glass jar because it's healthy. So linear, L-I-N-E-A-R, has the word line in it. Clinicians, academics, shamans are going to be different. So, fast forward or do what you need to do. But Tesla is another one who thought this way, and many, many others did, even though they were academics. So some academics are people that really like to float in the ether and very, very etheric, very astral, very much engaged in energy. Okay. We don't always have to have everything tangible, meaning you can touch it, you can feel it, you can describe it. It's absolutely positively, qualitatively in the physical. You've done your double-blind studies, and those are really important, but they're not everything. Okay. So I have physical experience with addiction. I have a little tiny bit of experience as a shaman and a medicine woman, more so with reversing and preventing disease, bringing babies, infertility, gynecological, thyroid, stuff like that. But now I just went through this really big, huge learning curve on addiction. And whoa, it's intense. Okay. So quantum physics is something that I interfuse because of how much I like entanglement and wave. And I like to look at the atomic and the electron. And so you'll hear me talking about ions and different things like that. And I'm not someone who says, as long as I can pull out my microscope and I can absolutely measure it, it's going to be okay. I don't see it that way. I have gone into people's dreams. I have had vision and come out and given it. I've had precognitive, premonitions since 1965, when I was taught that, of course, I was supposed to do those things. And most people weren't. So it is what it is, okay? So I combine, as I wrote on my notes here, observing, sensing the field, meaning the energetic field, okay? Thousands of hours with clients over 35 years, starting in 1984. And then my own self-healing, in addition to helping other people heal. I felt myself heal from numerous instances, okay? What I want to say is that, let's see. I want you to first, before we open up and get started, I want you to realize that you need to have an internal dialogue with yourself. Instead of seeing it as hearing voices or not knowing kind of what's going on, once you get healthy, you detox the body, you will have a guidance and protection system, whether you call that God or Jesus or Allah or Buddha, it's okay. Or you call it just your own internal message or your higher self or whatever you want to call it. But mind chatter, that busy, I got to do this, and valuing busy isn't so much of a blessing as it is to kind of be noticing, crow outside, and should I take a walk later? And I think I'm going to make some zoodles. And, it's different than a constant task orientation. Task orientation will take you into addiction. So we are going to talk about addiction, and addiction, if you look at the word, comes from the word ADD, which is add, okay? A person who's addicted is looking to add something into their life. And if you've listened to any of my other videos, and I've talked about this a little bit, then heroin is, if you break that word sound down and syllabalize it, it's bringing the hero within, okay? Someone needed to be saved during a time of their life, or maybe a great expanse of their life. Maybe it was 2 days of their life and it's forever been with them and permeated the soil of their consciousness and their unconscious or non-conscious mind. But there needed to be a rescue. They needed a rescue. They needed a hero, or they needed to be the hero. Heroine, right? Heroine, the hero within. Methamphetamine as me, the amp. I need to amp myself up. I don't have enough energy. And this is all by design. So the first thing I want you to write down that you really get as a nugget from this is the word sound. And the second thing is that we are by design addicted. Now, what are you addicted to? Well, I wrote it down because I was like, geez, it's such a huge list, right? It's addiction is fueled by pain and the need for escape or escapism, right? So self-medication is what I think of when I think about addiction. I think that the person has learned there's a pill for that. There's a way to get rid of that. In fact, I heard a man who's been, chronically addicted to alcohol during his life, like many of my own family members, say, just make it go away. And that's a classic alcoholic's statement. Just make it go away. Just get it out of here. I don't want to deal with it. They're looking to get rid of pain. They're looking to escape. They're looking to make it go away. And they're looking to self-medicate. Okay. So addictions, opioids. We're in a major opioid crisis. So think about all the pain pills that people are ordering, and think about all the drugs that are on the street that, you know, are very similar. Heroin and the fentanyl that's now an opioid that's inside of your Lortab. So if you're going to get a pill for your migraines, Lortabs are acetaminophen and opioids. Opioids are very, very addicting. If you are getting cannabis, you need to watch out for that kind of popcorn smell, because fentanyl has been found in cannabis. And it's a way to get, for some folks that this is their business, is to sell to you, is to get you to where you just feel like you have to have it. Like your opioids are extremely addicting because they addict the midbrain. They addict the amygdala and the limbic center. And the limbic center and the midbrain and the amygdala are the old structures of the brain, and it can be very painful. So the two things that we were noting so far were that addiction has a lot to do with needing to add something into your life, right? And that we are by design addicted. And so now, bless up, Kim, we are going over what kinds, because addiction is about pain, and it's about escapism, and it's about how we have been by design, every single one of us, and children by the age of 4 and 5 years old, due to direct target marketing, are being funneled into little addictions so that they can continue to grow and be profited from throughout a marketing industry, okay, that needs them. So when we talked about the fact that addiction is all about self-medication, so if you have a medical model that calls medicine, I have to go take my anti-anxiety medicine, I have to go take my depression medicine, and I'm like, those aren't medicine, those are drugs. There's no medicine in that. There's nothing that's medicine in that. Like, if we did, you know, if we had a time with you at a center that I'm dreaming of, that I'm, you know, imagining and bringing into the magic of imagination, you would be somewhere for a couple of months, and you would see what your body started to feel like when you got out and you walked. You got sunlight, you got herbal tea, you got chai, you got juices, you got raw food, you got to see food being prepared, you got to see people connecting and working together as a pack, you got to be amongst animals, you got to be amongst growing food, you know, you got to really cleanse your body and learn how to skin brush and do different things. There is just so much that I am so super excited about. So then when you come out of being around, bless up, Carla, other people who are self-medicating all the time with this list I'm going to tell you, then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I didn't realize how deep that was and how deep I'd become entrenched and enmeshed in this. So we got the opioids. Right? We got the heroin I talked about, bringing the hero within. We needed a rescue. And I think about one person I know that was removed in and out of a home, right, as a child, and how they needed a hero to just come in with the cape, like, you know, little boys and little girls see in cartoons and movies, and they put on their little capes and tie them on like we did in Waldorf. And they needed a rescue. They just needed someone to go, I'm here and you're okay. So every time you think about heroin, think about that. If that superhero cape had to come on and had to just rescue the person. Now, what I started with that you might have missed really super quick was that I'm much more of a quantum physics type person, which means that I don't have to have everything absolutely empirically measured. I like it. It's wonderful with the hair testing. But when it comes to the medicine, you've got a clinician, like a doctor and a nurse. You've got an academic over here, and you've got a shaman and a medicine woman over here. And I've got the spiral fractal approach, where the clinician is the very straight line. It's linear, and linear comes from the word line. Linear is linear. And those are for the people that want the bottom line. They want a 3-minute video. Just give me the scoop. I got to get out of here. I'm super, super, super busy. And that's not me. I'm a quantum physics person. I have been for many, many, many years. It's been around since about 1925. So let's get in. Opioids, heroin, methamphetamine, you know, and I talked about methamphetamine in a personal live stream on my page the other day. So apologies if repeating it for some people. but it's me, the amp. And everyone I've spoken with, at least 25, 30, 35 people said, meth really appealed to me because I needed to get amped. I needed energy. And that's exactly why I wrote my book, Detox and Heal Your Thyroid, because thyroid supplies energy to every single cell. And I could tell by looking at people, by observing them, that they had a slowed thyroid. So that's what's going on there. We got your benzos like Xanax. And my paternal grandmother was prescribed Xanax the first year it came out in 1981. She was also someone that was using alcohol or abusing alcohol. So she was using them together, which is really lethal. And Xanax is being prescribed still today since 1981 as an anti-anxiety medication. So remember, it's not a medication, it is a drug, and it's a powerful drug that leaves you with horrible addiction that's extremely difficult, although nowhere near as difficult as opioids, to get yourself off of, okay? We also have alcohol, tons and tons of alcoholism, right? Lots of people who are addicted to alcohol. And that is also very, very tough, but I'm going to put that probably underneath benzos and way underneath opioids, because as I started this live stream with, addiction is by design, okay? So what were you supposed to be addicted to originally, if we could even use that word? You were supposed to be addicted to mama. Not just your mother, but Mother Nature. That was what drove you, not addicted you. But now that that has been displaced, right? You've been displaced from nature and mama both. And that's a whole nother live stream that I could talk about cold mother and disconnected mother. And I try to speak about that sometimes with local people who are shamanic practitioners. And they're like, oh, I don't have time. I got to do other stuff. But I think it's actually one of the most important things, because in psychology or clinician language, we've got a whole plethora of attachment disorders. And I don't like that language because it's very broken machine disorder, in order and out of order. Okay. We've got food drugs, which I think for me is the biggest addiction above heroin today, is food drugs. I can't go to Walmart, the grocery store, or anywhere else without seeing people with their Mountain Dew, their Diet Coke, their Cheetos, their crackers. Their small children are going home with those big plastic jars, big plastic containers with the round Cheeto type balls, you know, the puff balls that have those super bright orange cheese on them. And I think, oh my God, please don't feed your child that, but they do. Food drugs are the most addicting of anything. If you've got a little extra money, you want to go out and get that vegan gluten-free muffin. I did yesterday. I got a vegan gluten-free chai cupcake. Well, I didn't really need that. I didn't really need to spend $3, but I was having some feelings yesterday. You know, I was feelings about the boy dying and about the people coming and just a bunch of feelings. I mean, we all have feelings. Feelings are the cognitive interpretation of our living waters. And I thought, as I was driving the dogs to the dog park and going to get, you know, a few things at Whole Foods and stopping at my garden and, you know, 15 jugs of water and getting it all set up, I thought, I'm going to Sarah's table. I started making deals with myself. I'm going to go to Sarah's table and I'm going to go see what kind of vegan gluten-free cupcakes they have today for $3. I mean, that's going to be my treat, right? And I have to work really hard about treat orientation. You know, I'm very treat driven because I was trained that way. So that's what I'm talking about when I say we are addicted by design. There are powerful systems, powerful media. They have powerfully influenced many generations of your people. And, you know, darn it, I mean, we're doing it without even knowing that we're doing it. You know, oh my God, we got to get the latest for me. I got to get the latest Game Boy. I don't want my son not to have that. I mean, he doesn't have a father in his life and he doesn't have grandparents in his life. So I'm going to make sure and get him the latest Game Boy because then he's going to feel special. So we're looking for love in all the wrong places. Okay. Coffee is major. Okay. I love the taste of coffee. I haven't had it for months now, but man, I was really hitting the coffee there as I was going through the addiction, the opioid addiction with a loved one. I probably was getting a coffee at least twice a week. I was rolling through Starbucks and getting my coffee with my almond milk, lattes and stuff like that. So not good. It does change us. It does rearrange us. Cocaine. Okay. What else do I have? Cigarettes, nicotine, tobacco, however you want to call it. I mean, people are smoking and they're vaping and they're smoking, even though cannabis is a plant and it's medicine. It's changed. It's changed so much from 1975 when I started. It's not just the little Colombian that makes you kind of silly and makes you kind of laugh, but now it's like super manipulated and hybridized. Maybe it's a good thing, but maybe it's not. Okay. So is it a good thing to always put hot smoke on your throat, whether you're vaping or smoking? I don't think so. In fact, having written a book about thyroid, I know it isn't. So gambling. Oh my gosh. I never knew, because living in California for 42 years, until I was 42 years old in 2002, I got here July 1st. I never lived by casinos or anything, but I did remember my parents going in the summer in the motorhome, and we would ride along and do the other fun things that we did, because we weren't going in the casinos except for the buffets. But it didn't really register as a child. And now I live about a mile and a half or so from Black Bear Casino. And it's got people love the buffet. Every Thursday and Friday night is the seafood buffet for $17.99, and they've got everything you can imagine. People come here just for that and to stay for the weekend and gamble there, and they have great prizes. And I think I've probably put, a $2, $5, $3 as I waited to go to a buffet, for our Christmas party, or my son wanted to go for breakfast or lunch or something like that. But I don't really get into that. And the other one is gaming. So look at all these addictions. Okay. There's RPG gaming too, which is role play gaming. Think about like WoW, World of Warcraft, and think about, I don't know if it's Game of Thrones. I think it is. And then there's another one called RuneScape, which has been around for a really long time, that my son used to play quite a bit. And those are very addicting. So what do these things do? But before you have addiction and you really start funneling all of your energy into one or more of these categories, you may have anxiety. You may have had, so what you're self-medicating, what you're kind of trying to distract yourself from. Call of Duty, right? Oh my gosh, yeah. Anxiety, depression, right? Excited neurons, right? Irrational behavior, endocrine problems. What else did I put here? Let's see. Anyway, what I noted with Dr. Watts when I do a hair tissue mineral analysis, or a TMA, a tissue mineral analysis, is Dr. Watts showed me that I could look for the sodium-potassium ratio, and that I could look for certain patterns in a person's chart, because he said, once you've been reading them for quite some time, Karen, you'll be able to see, like he sees, Dr. Watts, you'll be able to see an emotional pattern throughout the whole chart. I was like, wow, that gives me something to aspire to, because I'm really down for learning. I mean, that's probably my number one addiction, is that I'm studying and, learning, because I get so excited about helping people and them going, I didn't know I could do that. That's amazing, So we are designed for addiction, right? And that's because most of us have had mama incapacitated. Mama, Mother Nature, let's just call her mama for right now, even if that feels weird to you. Mama, Mother Nature, right? She's changed so much. The sky has changed, the water has changed, the soil has changed, which is the earth, right? We can't really walk barefoot outside everywhere, because people are so toxic that they're always like, and they're hawking up, spitting out a big old loogie on the ground. You don't want to walk barefoot because you don't want to step in that stuff. But so why do we start like really hyper focusing on something? And that's because part of us is so angry or so frustrated at ourselves, at our parents, at our grandparents, at the situation we find ourselves in, at the fact that the cost of living is so high that at any given time, there's a high percentage of people in the world right now that are hungry, starving, in desperate need of trauma care, are burned, are being victimized, are being human trafficked, are being raped, are being body parts. I mean, there's so much stuff going on. And I believe it's by design. That's my belief, okay? I believe that addiction is totally by design, which means that presupposes, or it maybe doesn't seem obvious to you, but for me, it presupposes my belief that we're perpetually being domesticated. We're being changed, okay? That we had an original human nature that is systematically over time, a relatively short period of time too, but a very long period of time in conjunction to the human lifespan of today. So if the human lifespan of today is, 40, 50, 70, 80, 90, maybe 100 years, but it used to be exponentially longer, wiser, healthier, then wouldn't it make sense that by design, we're by design for addiction? I think it does. So when we get angry, when we think about the cost of living, when enough of us, the collective consciousness, starts to have feelings of anger, of short, why do we have to keep going to work and working with those people? Why do I have to look at my children starving and swollen bellies? Why do I have to have, substandard care when I go to my obstetrician? Why do my parents have to fight me on everything? Why do I have to be so busy? Why is my to-do list so long every day? Why does my landlord give me such a hard time? There's people thinking these thoughts all over. And they wouldn't have to think these thoughts if we were living not in a negative way. If we were living in a positive way, we wouldn't have to be thinking these thoughts. So all of these thoughts are generating the wattage. Does that make sense? It's generating the wattage of the soup, the primordial energetic soup, the field. It is the field that we live in, and it has everything to do with how you're picking up now. Okay, Bob Marley, you have a signal, just like if I have this phone has got to pick up a signal, and I put it next to my head if I'm driving in my car and I'm talking to someone. I'm talking to Kim on the phone and I'm driving in the car, and Kim and I were talking a couple of times on the phone when I was driving in the car, and I said, I'm on the way there, and if I didn't have my headset like I normally pull out all the time, I've got a Bose headset that I've had for a few years. I don't want this thing next to my head because it's always, especially if I'm driving, it's always looking for a signal. Why? Because it's RF, it's radio frequency technology, RF technology, capital RF, radio frequency, okay? Don't let them fool you. You are also a radio. You also have a crystalline structure in your brain, but it's not functioning like it used to. It's not magnetized like it used to. That's why the catawampus levels of your iron, copper, and zinc, those are your foundational brain. When we talk about toxic brain, those are the foundational elements. They're the spark plugs that have to be working right, okay? So when you're angry and you have all these thoughts and things aren't going right and you're sick and tired of being busy, you got a to-do list, you have things like implosion, right? You start to implode and instead of explode, because now maybe you've been told for so long through the industries and the schools, that's not really nice. You need to be quiet. You need to keep it calm. So now you implode, you start, you're getting so angry on the inside, where I would rather come out and just say, I'm really prickly right now. I don't feel good. I feel really angry. I feel really upset with the circumstances I find myself in. And I did. I mentioned this to Kim on a couple of occasions. I said, through the little messenger box, I'm typing on the little messenger box to Kim here on the computer. And I said, I feel really prickly right now. I feel really just not in a good space because I've been exposed to so much stress with addiction, So imploding, it also looks like OCD. obsessive compulsive disorder, right? So since everything is not in control inside and you don't want to let everybody know how, and I'm giving you the crazy face, not that I'm feeling like that right now, but I was feeling like that. And I would go in there and I would always make sure my bathroom was kind of in order. So I was like, oh, that's the one place where I go several times a day that like my room's a mess. Everything's a mess. Everything's a mess in my life. Everything's a mess with my family member. It's a mess with my car. It's a mess with everything else. My bathroom's okay. I can go in there and shut the door and feel like a small piece of my life is okay. But if you can't have that and the OCD starts to grow, it starts to just creep itself into all kinds of things, right? Or for many years, for me, it was like I'd have a really stressful day at the office and I'd need to make sure that my desk was just totally clean and nice so that when I came back the next part of the day that was early, what we call a morning, I come back the next morning and it's like, that looks like somewhere I could start over fresh. I don't have to be like rattled because it's a big mess and I'm trying to find everything when, there's always rushes. OCD, ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, if your children are oppositionally defiant, chances are they're imploding from inside. ADHD, same thing. They're impulsive. They can't really focus. It's also toxic brain. These are also toxic brain, but they're also imploding, with anger and feelings and toxic brain. Okay. Psychologists are going to look at that like, we're going to need to give you a medication. We're going to give you a diagnosis and a medication, and I'll probably have you come sit on the couch once a week and we'll do some therapy for that. That's probably really great to do some of that. Maybe you have to do that for a really limited amount of time, but on the overall picture, there needs to be real change. Like you need to figure out getting a hair test right now. If you think this stuff is hokey, this lab's been around for 35 years. Dr. Watts has the most empirical research and the best articles ever written. I encourage you to read them. All you got to do, because you got Google, right? You can do all that. But addiction is to escape. We are looking for escapism. We're all stuck here on this plantation, this world, this continent, this place, this city, this zip code, this house that you're living in, whatever it is. And darn good and well, if you don't know, you will know that you're trapped. You're trapped. And when you start to realize that you're trapped, in fact, whether you realize it or not, and you start to go, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was really the situation. Oh my gosh, right? Like you may want to buy that house so much. And it's like, oh, I can't believe we're going to be homeowners. Oh my God. Pretty soon, that home owns you because the shaman sees things very differently. It's a house of spirit. It's got a numerological vibration to it based on the address. It's got that vibration, and things have happened on that ground that contribute to the field. So I will notice that people move in and very similar, not always the same, but similar circumstances happen over and over, including Cloquet Natural Foods. It was owned by Linda and it was owned by Deb and her husband. And now it's owned by Jody and her husband. It's got a vibration in that building. And I see it over and over and over manifesting almost exactly the same way. Okay. All right. Violence. So if a person doesn't get to express their pain and they go into escapism instead, and there's these 3 to 5 ways or more to express their pain. Like I said, they can implode. They can, go into addiction and escape, right? They can emotionally masturbate. And what does that mean? They're just looking to see if they've got likes all the time. And they want people to kind of come and be cheerleaders and fluffy. And they buy readings from people who are psychics and advertise that are just like, oh, you're just going through the shift right now. And oh my gosh, everything's going to be so great for you, right? And there's all kinds of people that provide services. And the reason that they're providing those services today is because they're like a big it's like the show, The Big Comfy Couch, right? You want to get on the big comfy couch and you want to feel good. And they know you want to feel good because they want to feel good too. So you guys are stroking each other. They're stroking you and you're stroking them. Otherwise, you would get a real reading, but those are very hard to find. The other thing, how many people have heard about the Columbine shootings and the church shootings? And oh my gosh, it seems like every week. Up here, there was a young person that was shot in the head. Excuse me, I'm choking on I need to have a drink. And the last one that makes me really, 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 really sad is when people have another expression of how they feel inside. They feel so bad, they didn't, maybe they already did implode, and maybe now that's not working, and maybe they got addicted and they go home and they drink alcohol at night. But another layer of the expression of their pain is animal abuse. So they've got a dog in their house or a cat in their house or multiple animals or a bird in their house, and they really have no means of taking care of the animal, and the animal is perpetually caught in a kick the dog syndrome, or is worse abuse, kicked down the stairs, or not fed, or put outside and it's freezing outside because the person is so interpolated. The person is in so much mental pain, right? And I had 2 ladies last week that did half-hour sessions with me. Both of them told me directly, and no fault, no shame, no blame, nothing. I was there to help, okay? And I said, you can be honest with me. I will help. Just lay it out there. Nothing's going to shock me. I have heard a lot in 35 years. And one of them said, I feel like I'm hearing satanic voices, and I'm just really trying to put all this protection around me. Another one said, my mood swings are so bad and I'm 4 months pregnant, and my God, I don't think my partner can stand to be around me. And I said, I'm going to give you 3 things you can do. And one of them was to immediately stop eating wheat. I go, immediately, you will start to notice a difference in not more than 2 weeks. Like, you'll be like, whoa, I should have gotten off of this a long time ago, if you want to get rid of those things. Addiction comes from trauma, but it also comes from disconnecting, right? So if we're disconnected from people, like, I don't know, I got really disconnected with members of my family that started to really find a lot of what I was interested in, to be something they weren't. Like, many of us will hear, I know many will be able to relate to this, but so you think you're better than us because you eat different, or you've got to only eat expensive food. So, you think you're better than us. You've got to have organic food. You can't just eat the hot dogs we've got on the grill because you're too good for that. I'm like, no, actually, I'm going to get really, really physically sick if I eat those hot dogs. Okay. Well, then eat the brats. I don't want to eat the brats, Mom. I'm going to get sick if I eat the brats, Well, there's Donald Duck orange juice in the fridge. I got about 10 of them in there. And I said, Mom, no offense, but I really can't do that. It's okay. I don't need orange juice. I'm fine. I've brought my own drink with me, Mom. I brought a big smoothie. Well, see, it's what I'm talking about, Karen. And, Thanksgiving comes, and I said, well, I don't really do the holidays anymore, Mom. I found that it really kind of takes me out of a lot of fear and expectation. And, even my own birthday, like I've gotten to a point where it's like, I realize I can minimize, and this is a big piece, I can minimize the risk and the potential for my own implosion and anger and rash emotionality by minimizing the expectation I have around my birthday and, any kind of anniversaries, any kind of expectations that I have, right? The only one that I still get kind of caught up in is that I do have 35 years of medicine, and I have actively been reversing disease. And every once in a while, I'm like, man, how come people can't really see what's going on? How come they can't see through it? And then someone who will know me really well, like Anthony or Kim or someone, will just be like, I just think it's a big stretch for people. Like, oh, that's all they've ever known is Western allopathic medical industry, right? So they're going to keep getting a hose shoved up their backside and getting a colonoscopy instead of changing their diet. They're going to keep pushing radiation into the breast tissue, which is, fat and mammary glands that are like a beautiful flower, instead of changing their diet and taking the iodine and doing a few things. So it is what it is, okay? Trauma and disconnect. That disconnect is something that used to be diagnosed as DPD, which is dissociative personality disorder. And before that, it was MPD, which is multiple personality disorder. So when a person would get so fractured and fragmented as a young child, which a few things happened to me, a person would go into dissociation where they would kind of just leave the self, and you would see like this blank look on them. And people that have been really disconnected, disassociated, DPD and MPD type personality disorders are really going to be much more likely to go into addiction. So your mind is really powerful, and it's constantly receiving signals all the time, just like the phone we talked about. So you're either picking up because you're getting out into nature every single day, even if you only have 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Like I got out today for probably 35, 40 minutes and got out and took a nice walk outside amongst the trees. I got the lilacs up to my nose. I got the cherry blossoms. I went to feel them and give thanks for them and put them up to my face. And I will show you why the whole concept of allergies is a fraud. It's a fraud. You can't possibly be allergic. Everyone in the world would be allergic to cats or dogs if that was the case. The only reason that you are reacting is due to your thoughts and due to your habits. Thoughts and habits, what you eat and what you think, okay? In fact, oncological cancer research has proven that 98% of cancer is due to your thoughts. That's absolutely proven. 98% of cancer is due to your thoughts. So how much of your thoughts is due to addiction, right? How much are you replaying, I'm not wanted, I need to add my relatives, I need to add my father into the mix. For some reason, he didn't like me, I wasn't good enough. How come my grandparents didn't like me? They didn't come around. How come nobody liked me in school? How come I was always a different one? You're adding. You want to add, right? Our favorite form of math is adding. I mean, if you've got 20 bucks in your wallet, you want to add 20 more and 20 more and 20 more. You don't want subtraction. You want to add, okay? You don't want to divide. You don't want to take away. You don't want to start doing algebra. You want to add, addition, okay? So by design, these things are put out into the field. The alcohol is put out there for you to have. The alcohol stores do 150 times better business than I do, because there's no way you're going to come to me and change your diet and listen to your mind body and do your hair test and everything else when you can drive right over to that liquor store and you can get yourself a cold case of Hams and bring it home, or vodka or whatever it is. Every single day on my walks, I pick up Taka and different Russian vodka bottles, like the little ones. I forget how much they cost now. The little plastic bottles in the street where people were just, and drinking their vodka. Every single day you pick up signals. That's why every single day when you go and you look in your closet, or you look on the floor, or you look in your laundry basket, or whatever it is that you go get your clothing, okay? You are going to vibes or pick up a signal about the color that you're going to wear. Like, what am I wearing today? Actually, I'm kind of doing this, right? Kind of like a purplish color, but it's starting to get cooler outside right now as the day goes by. Tomorrow and Wednesday will be 70, but today's probably in the late 50s. So I thought, I'm getting a little bit chilly. I'm going to put something on over it. Every day you sense the colors, okay? One more thing I want to talk about is what I opened with, and that is, I think it's one more thing, maybe two more things, okay? Or three more things. The world, if there are children in Africa that are starving, if there are people sitting in warehouses that are being inhumanely treated, if there's animals that also have signals just like you do, no different, no less, no more. Animals produce a signal the same as you. Okay, that's absolutely beyond a doubt. Okay, so those animals beyond, there's no refuting that animal abuse is going on in factory farms. Okay, they're laying there, they're in despair, they're in worry, they're in pain, they don't feel good, because they've been so domesticated into the modern cow, the modern chicken, and debeaked and defeathered and clawed and cramped up and everything. We've gotten used to, as humans, calling human change over time, we call it evolution. But it's not really evolution if it's being driven by design, is it? I mean, in which case, that really has to be domestication. So our color or hue, our pigment has changed, and now we're even having a large segment of our people with vitiligo, which is losing the pigment, right? We have models with vitiligo. Vitiligo is a thyroid disease. It is in large part thyroid as a basis. We're losing our pigment. We're losing our hue, our skin tone. We're losing our eyesight. I've got me over here with my reading glasses so I could read my notes. We're wearing glasses earlier. Young children are wearing glasses. We are not evolving. We're being domesticated to fit a bill of goods. We're being obsoleted. Our age is going down. Just the other day, someone said to me, oh my God, this person is old. They're like in their 70s. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to feel like? I'm in my late 50s. Like, that's old. Like, I have clients that are in their 70s and they're still like just absolutely amazing, young, vibrant people. In fact, I would go so far as to say that a lot of my 20 and 30 somethings that I know are actually frail and falling apart because they've been born to 5-6 generations of mothers that are so mineral deficient, and their diet has been so poor. They've been raised on baby formula and tons of vaccines, and they've been raised on land that's full of toxicity, like Flint, Michigan, and LA and San Francisco, places where I was born, right? They're in Oakland, and it's dog eat dog, and fight for resources, and they're hitting the vape, and like, I've got some neighbors here that they were injecting heroin by the age of 13, and I don't live in a place that anyone would call the hood or the ghetto or the projects or anything like that. And I have friends that live in the projects, and I absolutely love going there because the people are real and they're amazing. But what I'm trying to say is that we are being domesticated, and we're changing. We're being geared by design for addiction, because you can, from birth to death, be funneled along. So addiction is something we're going to have to take a really close look at, because if we were looking at the movie Avatar, we would say, wow. And if you haven't seen it, please, all you got to do is Google AVATAR and watch for $1.99 or free, depending on, don't torrent it and get yourself in trouble with your internet service provider, your ISP. But Avatar is amazing, and I have young ones that I take under my wing watch that, because they get to see cooperation, care, respect, right? They get to see an elder shaman who's really showing how to connect with the signals and the field and really understand our intuitive abilities. I've been sensing and going into people's dreams and coming back with insights and proving it, if you will, right? Like, whoa, okay, now I know you were in my dream because that was in my dream, like that kind of stuff. Or manifesting a protection space around after leaving the Terrence McKenna rave in 1993, having a gun to my head in way down in Chiapas, Mexico, down by Guatemala when I went to Palenque. And I went down there with I met up with a guy that I flew into Cancun, and he lived in Cancun. I said, do you want to come along? And I'll help out, and it could be a fun trip. But since I don't speak the best Spanish, it's, my Spanish is very limited now, and I need to improve upon it. That was a while ago, and I probably wouldn't take a trip like that now, but I wanted to go meditate on the ruins. And so the violence, the shootings, the animal abuse, the emotional masturbation, the escapism, the imploding, the OCD, ODD, ADHD, the psychological, the disconnect from mama and nature, our physical mama, latchkey, stranger care, schools all day long, institutions, run, keep up with the Joneses, get to all your sporting events, you got the birthday party, you got this, you got that, and everyone's so damn busy that no one's really having a life. And if you aren't that busy, people look at you like, well, what the hell's going on, right? And I'm like, this is how I want to live. I choose to live. So I don't have, a huge ton of clothes. I don't have really furniture besides this table. I've got my bike that I love to ride. I can ride my bike to the shop and meet people. I like going to the gym. I love living back home where I had the ocean. I could walk down to the ocean every single day and commune with the pelicans and the seals. But let's face it, okay? Most people have had mama taken away, not just by CPS and early fours and stranger care and mama needing to work and mom and dad disagreeing and mom and dad having trivial fights, mom and dad, mom being murdered, mom being, crazy and she can't parent anymore, or she's on so many meds that she's not really connected with herself anymore, let alone with you. But now we've got a shot that we give moms in the hospital, and they can stay extra long in the hospital. So there's more of a payment, there's more of a push. And, whether you see it as good or bad, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is now we've got a shot because mamas are going to go into postpartum. Well, why are they going into postpartum? Well, I know why they're going into postpartum. We'll do a whole nother live stream on that. And that could be totally prevented, okay? So there's like 75 to 100 trillion different signals going on every day of your life that you're needing to figure out if you want to embrace and interact with, and if they're good for you, and et cetera, okay? They are overstimulating us. They are over-sexualizing us. This drive, this design, we're designed for addiction. Our glands are being steered for addiction. So when that thyroid slows down, what are you going to do when your thyroid slows down? Your thyroid right here in your throat, this little butterfly gland, right? That's got to get energy going to every cell in your body. You're going to go get that meth if that's who you are. And you're thinking, I need energy right now. And someone goes, well, just snort a line of this. This is freaking awesome. You don't have to get addicted. Just take a line of this and you'll be able to clean your whole house. You're going to feel amazing. And actually that was exactly what was said to someone I know when they were 20, 21 years old. And I was like, that's why y'all need to live with mamas and y'all need to live with grandmas. And, you need to, because we would have been like, oh, hell no, get that stuff out of here, right? Like we would have probably chased any dealers or friends away that would have done that. We would have the crock pot going and the house clean and, the whole bit. So that's the difference between having mama, and I even said that with my own children, my son and his partner, about 2 years ago, as I was like, I'm moving in. I'll have the crock pot. I know you guys don't eat what I eat. It doesn't have to be what I eat. I'll even have you guys, I'll even have your chicken cooking in there and your rice. So when you come home, you got good food. And they were all, hell no, mom is not moving in here. And so, you know how it goes with younger people. Okay. So, the last thing is that, when there's negative energy all over in the field is the grid. It's the earth itself. There is a natural grid. There's a natural electromagnetic vibe to it, and you're connecting to it. And you've got someone angry or upset. So you've got how many people, I forget, I wrote it down. How many people in the world right now are addicted and right now in this moment using heroin, fentanyl, meth, benzos, so Xanax, alcohol, whatever it is, right? Hello, Carla. Good to see you. So whoever it is, they can be sending and churning out all kinds of negative energy. The other thing is that when people use opioids and they're using Percocets and Vicodins and all these pain medications, like if you look at how many pain medications are going out in the United States out of pharmacies every day, every minute, you would be absolutely horrified. And these are highly, highly, highly addictive. People have pain. I get that. But in my mind-body course, Crucial Keys to Unlocking Disease, one of the doctors that I studied under indicated that there was another way to circumvent pain. And if you're the kind of person who's like, I'm not changing my diet, I'm not going to do that, I'm not gonna, I don't believe in that. That's a bunch of poppycock. Well, you prove it to me. Well, there's a doctor that proved it to you. He proved that people that had some of the most absolute pain, back and neck injuries and plantar fasciitis and TMJ and tennis elbow and everything else were almost 100% of the time, if not 100% of the time, they were healed by releasing the mind and the thoughts, which constrict the body and create an oxygen deprivation in the body. So now there's no blood flow, there's no oxygen, there's no circulation moving. So these thoughts are very, very, very powerful. Okay. So let's see here. I want to make sure if there's anything else I had. Quantum physics talks about a superposition, which means every single day, some kind of a question or a query comes up in your mind, like, should I walk to work or ride my bike? Should I ride my bike or walk to work? I wonder which one I should do. And you're going to make a decision. Well, I think I'm going to ride my bike today. And now that changes your whole world and your whole worldview and everything about you, because you collapsed other potential choices and you went with that choice, right? That's called a superposition in quantum physics in the most basic sense. I mean, it's a lot more than that, but that's kind of like the most basic sense, right? So here's my thing, and here's where I'm going to go into kind of the shaman thing about addiction, right? Is I looked at it, and here's what I can provide you, okay? And here's what you can provide yourself. I got a hair test for my close loved one, my family member that ended up with addiction, opioid addiction. I saw the sodium and potassium were super skyrocketed. I should have brought a picture out here to show you, right? I saw the medical records, and the TSH was really, really, really in the toilet. I mean, it was like a 0.29, the TSH. If you know anything about that at all, you know that that means a person's kind of going into hyperthyroid, right? And then I saw it swing up to like a 6 point something on the TSH. So he was vacillating between hypo and hyperthyroid during this. Then I learned from Matthew Finch, whose course I took called Ultimate Opiate Detox 2.0. And he ran a special on it. You can get on his email list if you want. I don't make any money from Matthew. We're not in cahoots anyway or anything like that. But I thought, I want to learn everything I possibly can. I mean, I love my family member, and this seems to be like, the battle of battles. I don't really like battles, but here I was in one. And he was basically saying that, you had to really make up your mind. And the person had to make up their mind. Well, how are you going to get them to make up their mind that they really wanted to quit? And how are you going to be able to use some of the things he recommended, like gabapentin and other pharmaceutical drugs that your doctor could recommend to you, if I couldn't get his sodium and potassium down so he could come out of a really largely addictive personality? So it's interesting because now 3 or 4 of my local clients whose hair tests I've done, they also had super high sodium potassium. And I asked them, do you have a super addictive personality? Like, because this is what your hair test is showing me that I've learned from Dr. Watts. And they said, well, yeah, actually I do. Like, I've always been like super, super addicted to my partners. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And, it's really difficult because of these food drugs when you're addicted to that too. Okay. So I did the hair test. I did the course from Matthew Finch, the Ultimate Opiate Detox 2.0, the Ultimate Opiate Detox 2.0. And I started to learn through Matthew Finch a really big word called opiate-induced endocrinopathy. So when a person is using opiates all the time, heroin, fentanyl, Percocets, and Vicodins, and all that kind of stuff, pain medications that are sedatives, eventually it's like with my loved one, this person became super hyperactive. And now I know in the last month that they call that the Fetty dance after the fentanyl that's in a large percentage of these things. So if you see someone who's been smoking a blunt and all of a sudden, they get really weird and, kind of, they don't act like it and it smells like popcorn, there might be fentanyl in there and that's super addictive. So now they're going to get you to keep coming back and buying more because you want that fire, you want that loud, you want that experience, you want, whatever you want, right? So a superposition would mean that we take down and balance your sodium and potassium. We would take down your anxiety and your depression through, helping to clean up your diet a little bit, putting you on some supplements, maybe even some 5-HTP and some GABA to fill those GABA receptor sites, depending on what your DOC, your drug of choice is, and what your MOA, or your method of administration. So are you a snorter? Are you a smoker? Are you an injector or an injector? Like what are you? What is your drug of choice, your DOC, what's your DOC, and what's your MOA, what's your method of administration? Those are things that we need to know. And we can use amino acids to take and bring you down a little bit. I know you've probably heard of Kratom. I did buy Kratom, the #1 Kratom company that was recommended to me by 5 branches in SoCal, where I did about 5 years of receiving acupressure and acupuncture. My son had his first acupuncture needle, right here at the Great Eliminator Point when he was 5. Was at 5 branches in SoCal, which is basically Santa Cruz, my home. And I called them and they were like, we're definitely recommending Sacred Kratom as that brand because people have a really good response and it seems to be a super high quality. So I put some Kratom in a smoothie, and for me, I didn't feel anything at all. Like maybe I should have used more. I don't know, but Kratom is an herb, it's a plant, and it's also an opioid. Now, before we finish this whole section on toxic brain, because your brain became toxic from what? Trauma, disconnection, the sodium and potassium levels, the food drugs, right? The long history of baby formula and plastics and plastic bottles and Powerades and Gatorades and fast food drive-thrus and Happy Meals, lots of injections of vaccines with lots of toxic elements and lots of hot dogs and brats, and I could keep going, but you get the point. So the brain has become very toxic. The brain had become nutritionally deficient. The brain was lacking iodine and selenium to help clean itself out, to thin down the blood. The brain ended up getting a lot of cysts. And what I find is that a lot of our young people 30 and under have got cysts in their brain that are causing them headaches and migraines. I can tell when I work with people, especially in person, I can kind of start to feel it on the side of their temporal lobes. And they end up with really intense problems with alcohol and Xanax and drugs and everything else. So let's see, I'm trying to make sure if I've got everything in here. So we tried Kratom. Suboxone is buprenorphine, and that may or may not be available for a long time, but there's a lot of dosing clinics where either you go every day, you go 6 days a week, or some of them, like your doctor may give you a Suboxone, which is buprenorphine, or they call them boops. You might be able to get a prescription for that, which kind of like takes the edge off the craving of going back to the heroin and the fentanyl and the opioids and the pain pills. It's a transition drug. It is a drug that you have to get a prescription for. So then there's also methadone, and methadone is another transition drug for opioids, except that it's got a euphoria to it. So it gives you a drug euphoria. So you feel like you're still kind of getting high. But once you're on that, sometimes the clinics will play games like, well, you got here 5 minutes late and you're not going to get your methadone today, kind of a thing. And then people are out there really desperate and they're really cringing because of this addiction is so severe. So in my mind, addiction is going to be by design. Addiction is going to be from missing mama. It's going to be from trauma. It's going to be from food drugs, right? It's going to be from pressure and self-imploding. And we have treatment centers out there that people can go to, whether they're low, medium, or high intensity. In the state of Minnesota, you go get a Rule 25, which means you go to an assessment office up here by Duluth. You go over on Michigan Avenue between 7:30 in the morning and the doors close at noon. So if there's a long line of people, too bad, so sad. You're not going to, I'm just looking to see if it's Luna in the mudroom that I can kind of see in the corner there. You have to get an assessment that recommends you to low, medium, or high intensity center. The best one, absolute best one that I found so far is University of Minnesota Fairview Hospital, and the name of it is called Lodging Plus. It's a 28-day program. The people are absolutely stellar. Bob is freaking amazing. They do a family, parent, or close people to you in your life program where the family goes for 3 or 4 days. I think it's 3.5 days, but if it's a really small group, which they do have quite often, it's 3 full days. So it'd be like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that you would go. And they run you through videos and TEDx talks, and they break it up, and you have a lunchtime and you get to, be with your loved one who's in the program. And then they have a time where you take your loved one out for about 2 hours at night and you come back. So it's kind of trying things out. Like you didn't go slip off the wagon. The loved one didn't, but they have a subway right on their hospital floor, and it's beautiful and it's lovely and it's clean and the people are nice, and they take medical assistance, most medical assistance. So highly, highly, highly recommended. Do not go to a place called North Star in St. Paul, and do not go to a couple of other places. I'm trying to think. CADT in Duluth is pretty good. Deb and Annie over there are great. And inside of CADT, which stands for the Center for Alcohol and Drug Treatment, CADT in Duluth on 1402 Superior Street, has within its housing, it owns 3 sober homes called the Howard Freese Sober Homes in 3 locations in Duluth. And you live there for ideally at least 90 days. And every day you're in programming from 9 to 12, which means you get up, you get your coffee, your food, whatever you want in the kitchen. It's all covered by your insurance. So right when you come out of treatment, you go to the sober home, and it's either all guys or all females. It's staffed with a counselor and other staff. The food is all in there, like I said, Monday through Friday, the weekdays from 9 to 12. You're in processing groups and coping skills and stuff like that. And you get to stay out till 10 o'clock at night. So you want to have a high degree of structure for someone who's coming off of addiction. If you don't stay in that, you might even elect to do the Vivitrol, right? The Vivitrol shot, which is naltrexone. So if someone is to start to overdose in your home and you've got to go grab a nasal Narcan, and you kind of push it up in the nostril, and it takes just a couple of seconds to, a couple of minutes, depending on how saturated the person is in their high, meaning how much they've had and how lots of factors. I probably shouldn't try to explain all that because I shouldn't. But Narcan, you can go to Walgreens or any of the pharmacies and typically bring in their insurance card, call it in, and keep the Narcan in your house, in your car, in your purse, because it turns a life around and saves them if it's opioid based. Okay. If you get the Vivitrol shot, it's a time release like Narcan that's in the body, and it goes for 45 days. But I learned that it really only goes for 35 days. And people that are addicted, that we call addicts, just like we don't have slaves, we have people who were enslaved. We have people who had become addicted, who we call addicts. Okay. Most of them find out very quickly that that shot is wearing off at least 10 days before the 45 days that they promised. So that's a Vivitrol shot. It's about a $1,300 to $1,500 shot, one-time injection, or one injection for 45 days. In another 45 days, you can go get it again. I've talked to treatment people that I've worked with that are my clients that I see for different reasons. And because they've been in treatment for a long time, they've been chemical dependency or CD people. They've said that Vivitrol can exacerbate depression. So if someone's got depression, it can make the depression worse. So what's really going on is that these drugs are affecting the endocrine, or your hormonal system that deals with your glands, your thyroid, your pancreas, your sex glands, everything. So especially your thyroid. I'm trying to think now if I've got everything down here. We're disconnected from mama. We're disconnected from nature. We've been very, very colonized. The way that we live is very colonized. It's very unnatural. And every time we turn around, like I was telling someone the other day, right now, You drive your car, most of us, to the grocery store, and you park your car, and you don't pay for parking, but you go inside, and now you're being trained to bring your bag, which I love. It's great, right? It's forcing people to bring their own cloth bag instead of taking all these plastic bags home. And that's wonderful. But you can kind of see how the training goes, whether it's positive or negative. And so pretty soon, it'll be that you have to pay to park to go get your groceries, right? Just like we never thought in the 60s and 70s that you'd have to go pay to go into the county building or pay to go to your bank. And because you're in downtown, you got to pay the parking meters. So it's kind of gotten really out of control. So yes, thumb sucking is really interesting, because when I was at Waldorf, I learned that, that's a very self-soothing thing, is that when we're thumb sucking, it's actually going up to the roof, the upper palate of the mouth, right? The highest part of the roof of your mouth, which is why when I'm working, I worked with a family where the mother had breastfed for 9 years. Okay. And before you go, oh my God, or whatever, right? Just know that everyone has their pain. And as a medicine person, I don't judge. I thought, ooh, that's really a long time. There's going to be some ramifications to that. Take my reading glasses off. But 9 years. And so, she was thumb sucking a little bit. So one of the things that I really recommended to do in that instance, let me turn my notes over here, was to, get her drinking bottle that she carried around and to put a straw in it, ideally a glass straw, or, maybe I like the glass straws better than I do the metal straws. But even a plastic straw, because they can bend it and they can kind of move it with their mouth a lot, just for the temporary. And to suck with the straw, because when you suck with a straw, and I learned this working at Santa Cruz Waldorf in 2000, is that you're actually, sucking on that straw, you're hitting, the liquid's actually hitting the palate of your mouth. Now, as a certified Kemetic yoga instructor, one of the first things we do when we start our poses is we take the tongue and we make a circuit with the body by placing it up on the top of the palate. So that's how we make a circuit with our body, is to just try that for a moment. Just take the tip of your tongue and place it on the highest, top part of the palate of your mouth on the inside there, where we can't see. But if you do that, that's Yusir Hotep taught us that was a way to make a circuit there. So I'm going to see if you have any questions, but we are broadcasting for sure. Yeah. So when people used to talk about making a curse, in order to keep you from being as empowered, as powerful as you could have been, your mothers and grandmothers and even great-grandmothers and great-great and great-great-great-grandmothers, going back in the succession of mothers that you have, they were taught through pain and fear, don't you dare use that psychic intuition stuff. Number one, you shall have no gods before me. Number two, you shall not have taken any false idols. Number three, that stuff is dangerous and you will be called a witch for doing that. Well, hell no, I'm not a witch for doing that. You've got a GPS inside of you all the time, and you have the ability to use the internal dialogue to hear your own self, like KRS-One talked about. They've got a great video where KRS-One talked about, here comes the trains. Hopefully they don't all start howling. They talked about the fact that, well, who are you talking to? And how do you know these things? So my grandmother was a part of my being raised. Starting at about the age of 4, she knew that you had to reach a child before the age of 5, because the age of 5 for a child is developmentally the age of fear. Okay, if you take child developmental psychology, if you take child development, I've taken both of those courses in college. Doesn't really mean anything except that I got, a universal standard for what the ages mean. And I got something out of it, and I like it, and I still use it today. It's beneficial. It's not that all of it is just, superfluous and I don't need it. I mean, a lot of it's been absolutely phenomenal. I've carried physiological psych and psych of addiction. I took psych of addiction at West Valley College and different courses, and they've really given unto me. I'm very thankful for them. Don Johnson was my professor. He was half Finlander, he said, by his standards, and half Native American with long ponytail. And this was 1985 to 1987 that I was in his courses, his 3 psych courses. But we are being domesticated. We're being changed. We're definitely being driven towards addiction on many, many, many different levels. And a part of that, a big, huge part of that, is being disconnected from mama. So you might say, well, I wasn't, my mom was there, but take a really good look. Is mom obese? Is mom smoking cigarettes? Is mom taking medications? Is mom totally shut down? Is mom totally hyper-focused on, some sort of one of the many industries in the world? Is mom just constantly trying to figure out how she's going to make money, so she's so busy and so, distracted? Is mom mentally ill, right? Mental illness is by design. There's really would not have been mental illness. I don't care who wants to argue the point. You could be watching me 5 years from now and say, you're off your rocker, and I'm going to say, you can think whatever you want to think. It doesn't matter, because I've thought this through for my entire life, right? Yes, you communicate through the dream world. I've done it my entire life. Yes, I've had ancestors come through when I'm doing a massage session or a remote session for people, and I've given not just fluffy stuff like, oh my God, your grandma loves you so much. I mean, I've had people try that shit with me, and I'm like, okay, thank you. And I'm kind and I'm cordial and I'm respectful about it. But either it comes and it flows or it doesn't. I don't control that. It comes or it doesn't. In other words, an ancestor pops in and gives me the name and I'm connected to the field. They're not popping in from somewhere. I should qualify that. What's going on is either I'm connected to the field and they're connected to the field and a connection is being made, or it's not. And I don't get to control that all the time. So you can't put me up on a stage like all of these mediums that you see that it's $78 not for a ticket, and say that I'm going to walk through the crowd and, channel someone's relative, because I don't know. I don't see that. Do I go places and all of a sudden spontaneously it happens? Absolutely. I've gone all across the United States. I've gone into different countries, and I've had spontaneous messages for people. I never charged them a dime for it. I just gave it to them, and they were like, whoa, that's like really incredible. I'm like, well, this is their name, or this is where they're from. This is the name of the city, whatever it is, medical intuitive, the same thing. 99% of the time, it's not a medical, Western allopathic medical diagnosis. It's not, you've got EBV, you've got lung cancer. Very rarely, I think twice it was bone cancer, because they said it loud in my ears. And other times it was something else, but most of the time it was like, all of a sudden I see, and I see the stagnation and congestion, and, and I start to hear different tones, and I start to sense, and I'm being directed. My hands will go right to the place where the problem is, so that's kind of how that goes. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, but we've covered toxic brain. This is our third of a playlist, our third one. And toxic brain will lead to addiction. And the only way you're going to turn the addiction back around is to stabilize the person. So you need, I paid the person that really needed and wanted money at the time, because they were like, I'm not going to get a damn hair test. Why the hell would I get a damn hair test? That's the least of my problems right now. I'm an addict. And I'm like, I want the hair test because I believe in it so much. And with each person's hair tests that I've done, and at this point now I've done quite a few over years. The last many years, I've been able to really, get acquainted with what it is I'm looking at and what I need to look for. And then, a lot of it is self-explanatory. You can just read it yourself. But a lot of it, when it comes to addiction, you want to look at the sodium and potassium levels, right? How is the person going to be able to manage? Are they going to be able to come out of addiction by changing some of their habits? And man, with anger and feelings and escapism that the person's trying to do on a constant basis, adding, things into their lives, chemicals, instead of, dealing with the pain that they have, it can be really tricky. So I hope you've enjoyed this. The next one that I'm doing, Toxic Brain number 4, is going to be on stagnation. And I think you're going to find it really super interesting, more than what the name alludes itself to be. If you're watching me on YouTube, I really am going to ask you, please, to hit the subscribe button. Please also share this. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers, and we should be able to easily do that, I'll be able to not just have to sit in my living room, or I suppose I could do this on Facebook and live stream it on my phone outside too. But it'll make things a little bit more interesting. And the warmer weather is coming. And there's a lot more medicine that I would love to share with you that I've really spent my whole life to do. So stay with me and subscribe and share. Thank you. You guys have a good night.